Guy Davis and Curt Enderle are the production designers for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, and I want to kick things off by just asking you each, what is the magic to the story of Pinocchio? Guy, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, I mean, I think it's one of those, the story itself is timeless and it's open to so many interpretations, over the years. But I think, with Guillermo, he definitely made it his own, and took that story and didn't turn it into a tale about, a character learning to be good, to fall in line, but actually turn it on its head. It's about the character teaching everybody else that it's better to not obey,
Yeah. Curt, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tagline is, it's a story you think you know, but you don't. And Guillermo sort of brings his unique vision to this film in a way that refreshes it and just makes it feel really relevant for our times with the anti-fascist message and, sort of looking at things through fresh eyes.
Now, something I thought was pretty interesting to talk to both of you about. Guy, you have worked with Guillermo before on The Shape of Water, on Nightmare Alley, on other things. Curt, you have done stop motion animation before with The Isle of Dogs and Box Trolls. So what was it like for both of you to come together, production design this film, and bring those two things together, the world of Guillermo del Toro and the world of stop motion? Guy?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible, because design-wise, we treated it the same as we would like a live action film. It was the same sort of process. It's just we also had, the enjoyment of actually designing the characters, and every bit of the world and the props and everything. I came, pretty much all from live action and some 2D animation, so I learned everything about stop motion from Curt and Shadow Machine and art director Rob Dessous, and it was incredible seeing that process of translating Guillermo's vision to a new medium of stop motion.
Curt?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is really one of those things where neither one of us could have done it by themselves. Guy has this over a decade of history with Guillermo, and there's sort of an ease of understanding and the ability for Guillermo to say 3 words and Guy sort of comes up with something that you can look at and say, yes, that's it. And then we can sort of take it and run with it from there, because there are sort of the unique challenges, if you will, of stop motion animation. And, that's sort of the thing that I bring to this part of the package, that it's, sort of taking those ideas and making sure that they work for stop motion.
What is something you learned from each other in this film?
You want to go first, Curt, or you want? we're gonna pick. I learned to always let Curt go first on those answers. So
no, neither of us learned anything. We'll just take that bit out. No, I mean, I think you always learn something on a project, and for us as a stop motion medium, we're always wanting to do things that we know that we can do, and so having somebody come in from the outside, especially in a live action way, it sort of pushes us to sort of bring our A game. They're challenging us to do things that we would kind of dismiss if we were up to our own devices. We would just be like, nah, that's a little difficult. I don't think we want to do that. So, they, with Guy and with Guillermo, I think they were really able to push the rest of us to a place that's really kind of fresh for stop motion. It feels very cinematic, and I think that it looks very cinematic, and I think that's a credit to working collaboratively.
Totally. And, in credit to, Curt and the amazing team, anything that we thought of was never met with no, you can't do that. You know what I mean? It was always sort of well, let's see how we make this work. And they were always up for any sort of, challenge that, from a design standpoint, the sky's the limit at first. So, you can put it down on paper and say, well, let's see if this works. And a lot of times it's just the collaboration of all the departments, like, well, technically this maybe can't work with, the size of a head as opposed to like what we need for mechanics. And it would go back to the drawing board, but never losing that approved vision that Guillermo wanted.
And I think all of the team here sort of, there's a great history of stop motion work here in Portland, and we were able to choose and pick from, a vast variety of talented individuals. And so we really did have kind of the best team possible to sort of attack this. So, I think that was also very gratifying and something that really helped make this film sort of more than we could have on our own.
Like, was there any like a scene or any like set that like Guillermo or Guy are envisioning that like you wouldn't have thought of from a stop motion perspective, but they brought because it was a like sort of they had that more live action experience or mindset?
Yeah, of course. I think there are two things actually that we tend to shy away from. One is water. Water is very difficult to deal with in stop motion, and so you just tend to minimize it, or you become very theatrical about it in terms of cling film and things like that. And so, having to rely on a digital solution because there is so much water, we really did want it to feel still part of our stop motion world. And I think that was sort of our challenge, was sort of having a feeling that it was physical, even though it's a digital option in this case. And then I think also the death environment, the sand, that's definitely something, again, that is kind of almost uncontrollable in a certain way. But certainly Brian and the animation team were able to sort of embrace that. They did some testing with sand, Death sort of cupping it up in her hand. And while the running through the fingers was digital, we were able to control it, or they were able to control it in a way that it didn't all have to be locked down. And especially for things like the sand angel, when Pinocchio sort of falls on his back and swats the arms through the sand, that would be something that other places they may really want to have control over, but the animators are more than willing to sort of jump in and just manipulate this loose, wild, tactile, beautiful medium of sand that sometimes can really kind of be difficult.
Guy, like the sets you have to design and build for a stop motion film are a lot smaller than a lot of the sets you usually have to design and build. Like, did that present like challenges for you or opportunities?
It wasn't really any challenges at all. I approached it the same way as I would, collaborating with Guillermo and also co-director Mark Gustafson, just to, design what they were seeing for a space, and, keeping it into the design sense of the actual characters. So maybe it's not as realistic as far as like scale of doors. I mean, we never went too fanciful with it, but from the design standpoint, it was like I said, more of the easier side for me to say, this is what it's going to look like. And then when it came to production, how do they translate that into also like an environment that the puppets can interact with and the animators, because they have to be able to come apart to where animators can get into different areas and actually work.
Do each of you have a favorite set?
Oh, I have a few.
Yeah.
That's cheating to say you have a few, but I guess, yeah. It's the variety too, and then all the environments. I mean, we have so many sets that are either like are realistic, in more of a realistic vein, like the town, and then we have the surreality of the surreal death realm of Limbo and the Black Rabbits, area with the coffins, like the Tower of Babel, and the way that also, still works next to like that sort of modernist, brutalist, training camp. And I think I like how each one can push it to a different stylization, but still work as a whole. That's a cop-out answer of picking one, I know, but
They're
Okay.
all our favorite children. We can't pick, right?
Fair enough. Like in many ways, like one of the lines I think early in the film is about the little things, the forgotten things, the lost things. Is there like, because there's so like a lot of so small, so much detail and stuff like that, is there a little thing or detail or choice that you guys made that like might go unnoticed from someone watching the film the first time?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, a lot of what we do is to entertain ourselves, really, to keep ourselves interested, because you're sort of maintaining your interest for the 2.5 to 3 years of production. And so, we had come up with this very elaborate history for this town about how it started during the Roman era and sort of grew in population. And then there were, of course, plagues and earthquakes in northern Italy. And so things sort of fell off again. And so we wanted to layer in that history. Guillermo was very adamant about it feeling like a real place, even though it's not a specific place, that it has a sense of history. And so there's one shot in the town with Geppetto and Carlo, I think, going up the hill in a cart, and you see it from an alleyway. And on the left-hand side, as you look at it, there's a stone that's tilted on its side, and that is a Roman era grave marker, a stela. And so it's, again, something that you don't really notice. It's pretty low light, so you don't have a lot of relief to help pick that out, but it's a sense of history that's there. And I just think it sort of makes it a more rich environment, really.
It gives it a history, and Curt found so many amazing real world references that we used and adapted. But I remember when he actually made that sort of timeline of the environment, which was great, because it's, instead of just saying, well, this is a town that's falling into disrepair, that you would just start, making some cracks. We actually had a history, like this marker used to be here, and it was, from this era, and this archway, used to exist before the earthquake or something. So it was actually giving a real world history to a fictional place.
Was it, Guy, did you have a little detail or moment you particularly appreciated?
Oh, detail wise, I think the only thing that I remember design wise in it was we gave the mask that was shared between Death and the wood sprite. It was conscious to give the wood sprite ears, because we treated it as like life always learning, and Death not having ears because Death knows all the answers. So it was a little bit of, they shared the same mask as far as their face, except for some design details like that.
That's so cool. What was something that both of you thought was like the most sort of important thing in telling this story from a design perspective?
I mean, I think because we have all these different worlds, we needed to both differentiate them, between Geppetto's world and the carnival, which is slightly more colorful and a little bit more harsh, and then the sort of mythical Guillermo del Toro world of the underworld, where sort of rules are a little bit broken, and then having the fascist, which is also very brutalist and angular and sharp in a different way than the carnival is. I think having that differentiation so that you sort of see the different worlds, but also sort of still holding them together visually, I think was sort of something that I was really keen to make sure that we didn't lose during the process. We did that with color, with texture, to both differentiate them and unite them at the same time.
Yeah, and it's also how like the characters, also fit into it. You kind of see the town sort of feels like Geppetto. It's a little bit more inviting and warm with like the structure of his face. Whereas you look at the Mussolini and the guards and the Podesta, they're almost like puppet-like. They're more caricature to an extreme. Yeah. Same way Volpe is more exaggerated like a carnival. So
what like guys, someone who's worked with like Guillermo del Toro over like so many projects and things, is there something you learnt from him about fairy tales and the way he tells fairy tales?
I mean, obviously, his vision is in every aspect of it, and he's very hands-on with all parts of the design of the production. The one thing I've learned working with him on every production is that it's always unique. It's never, I mean, it's like the tagline, and you go into it thinking like, well, this is Nightmare Alley or this is Shape of Water. You get a sense of what it is, and then he takes it to such an inspiring place. It's always out of the box, outside the box of what you expect. And I think that's, if there's one thing that I've always gotten from him, and I try to also pass that along to the teams I worked with, is just to inspire that sort of thinking outside the box and see things a different way.
What was unique about Pinocchio in this one?
Pinocchio himself, I think, well, we started with that, that original grist design that Guillermo gravitated to. So it was a very, unique, very chaotic looking character that wasn't like, it wasn't like something you'd expect to want to become a real boy. It was almost like a punk version of Pinocchio. He was very much a, his own character.
Literally, his edges weren't sanded off. He was rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Curt, what was like unique or special about this project for you compared to other maybe stop motion films that you've worked on in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you spend so long working on these things. And I was telling somebody the other day, it's like I've waited 4 years to figure out if I've wasted 2.5 years of my life. And oftentimes you don't know until it's all together. And this one was one that, almost from the first moment that Guillermo sat there and told us the story, we were all just like, this is special. This is going to merit the level of effort that we're going to put into it. And for me as a stop motion person, and I think probably for the whole team, to a person, if you ask them, that's what made it so great, was that the material that we were doing sort of rose to the level of the effort of production. And so it really did feel like a special project for us all.
And it was. I mean, they continued on through the pandemic and through some rough times, but no one ever was not inspired to see this project through and having fun doing it. There was always problem solving in any production, but never to the point where anybody wasn't just like, okay, this is going to solve it and we're going to move forward and have fun doing it.
And there's something really nice about a story, a famous story about a puppet who wants to become a boy, and like it's almost like you guys are designing like little puppet theaters for all the sets, like because we're dealing with puppets to tell the story. So there's a really nice little meta element to this for stop motion for this particular film. Just to finish off, guys, if you could think of one word to describe your experience of making Pinocchio, what word would you describe?
One word to describe our experience. Incredible. It was an incredible experience, an incredible learning experience. I'm adding words to what I know, but incredible, I guess.
You only get one, guy.
Common thread is incredible. There we go. I'll choose that one. So.
Right. A variation on that. I think it's magical. It really was sort of this unique collaboration of all these different people, and kind of the project of a lifetime. So magical is mine. Yeah.
I love it. Guy and Curt, thanks so much for talking with us today. People watching this interview can go to goldderby.com to make your award predictions and join the discussion. I wish the both of you the best of luck for the upcoming award nominations on the circuit for Pinocchio and the production design categories. And thank you so much for giving up your time with us today. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.